SegNet picture. Okay, so I hope it's visible to all of you, right?
Yes, sir.
So this SegNet, as we see over here, is another of those very popular semantic segmentation networks. The interesting part over here is that this part, which you see, is what we call as an encoder. This part is what we call as a decoder. Now this encoder thing which you see over here, this is structurally similar to a standard VGG layer. So this is the VGG 16 which is being used over here. And on this side, what they do is they create these kind of filter banks in order to be symmetric with the encoder side of it so that it works out pretty good over here. Now, one thing which you have is that you will have some unpooling to be done over here. So unpooling which is to be done over here is essentially to do a spatial upsampling, and that spatial upsampling is done by way of unpooling, which would require a pooling index transfer. So let's understand. Wait, let me at least write down what I am doing today. Okay. So now that encoder part. So the encoder part in SegNet is actually VGG 16, I think so. Let me just search. I will just get the VGG structure.
Sir, is segment and unit different? Or?
Huh? Yeah, pretty different. Just hold on. Just a minute, because I'm doing it from from a laptop with a single screen. Insert. See, unit we had seen yesterday, if you remember. Were you there in yesterday's class, or did you bunk that class?
I was there.
So do you remember UNet, which we had done yesterday?
Yes.
So over there, so one of the differences is, let me go back to the previous slide. So in case of UNet, what you had is you were passing these like last activation over here in order to concatenate these activations. Okay. And in order to increase this spatial span, what you were doing is you were doing some sort of a learnable deconvolution. So you are squeezing down into the channels, but increasing the axis over there. That is what it was doing. But here, one is the one of the like that. Okay. So now comes to this one, which is the encoder part. Now encoder is essentially this first part of the network. So this whole part is what we call as the
Your voice is
encoder.
breaking.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Please, could you start from this beginning? We didn't hear, sir.
Yeah. So this part of my SegNet is what is called as the encoder. This part is what is called as the decoder. So this encoder is the same as VGG16. Okay. Now let's look into what part of VGG16 goes over there. So if you carefully look, an encoder does not have these fully connected layers, and also this max pooling which comes from above. So this part of VGG16 is not used. Encoder in SegNet is based on VGG16. Okay. So what you do is you chop off this FC layers. This is the first thing which you do. Now what you are left with is fully convolutional model over here. Now these fully convolutional models, so these are all trained layers. These are all trained layers which you have over here. Okay. Now these are taken down from the VGG16 standard trained model, and one of the advantage you get is that you have a what's happening? Initialized model. So a model which is already initialized. Okay, and that really helps a lot because your learning complexity gets reduced since you have a pre-initialized model over there. Now, whatever comes from here is, so from this last layer, this is the activation which goes to the decoder. Okay, so now if you look into the decoder, so let's look into this decoder. Yeah,
sir. Can you please tell something more about pre-initialized model?
Okay, so initialized model is what you do is you take a VGG net. Okay, so you have your VGG net, and then so this VGG16, then you use the ImageNet dataset and you train this model. So if you train this model, what is the capability of this model? So in the last layer, you had 1000 neurons. So it was basically able to discriminate 1000 different object classes. Now, by way of training this one to discriminate 1000 object classes, so you have already trained what is there in these convolution kernels over. So these are activation layers. They are not exactly the kernels, but these these kernels got trained, and that's why these activations got generated. So now the weights in this network anyways are trained to be receptive to natural images. Do you agree with that?
Sir, can you repeat what about receptive you told?
They are receptive to the appearance of natural images. So in natural images, what will you have? You will have some sort of, like, say, you will have circular objects, you will have like long lines, you will have horizontal objects, and etc. of them. So essentially, the model needs to learn those kind of receptor fields, or say those kernels will uh, have a certain structure which is similar to, so these object types, so that they work out good. Now they are anyways being learned by this network. Now since this network has learned all of those receptor fields, then the weights are all in the right form. Now you can use them in order to, so now that the weights are in right form, so now what happens is, if we look at this complete network over here, then this part already has the weights which are trained. So it means that there won't be any error which is being produced over there. The only thing which you need to do is you need to train only this part of the weights. So whatever, generally, like, let's assume that there are equal number of parameters here and here, then your learning complexity is just to train these part of the parameters, because this is already trained, almost trained. I mean, they are at near convergence point. As a result of which, the time taken to finish the training process is going to be very low.
So sir, we will train, but only just it will be a few adjustments because of we will have new images from the
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look into that process, you would see that the gradients through these layers, they don't change significantly. There would be significant change through the gradients over here, but the gradients through this one will not change so significantly.
Okay, sir. But they are for only for natural images we are talking about. Right, sir?
Natural images also more or less they work, but if you go down for, say, speckle images like ultrasound or OCT, or you are doing some sort of a speckle radar imaging or satellite imaging, then there might be significant changes which can come down. But in general, we do see that there isn't so significant change that you will have to make some great modifications over there. Okay, so now this is what happens over here. But then let's look into the compute complexity. So typically what I said over here is you have this. So let us take this first layer. So you had convolutions. And your input X went into that. X is, say, 224 cross 224, say 3 cross 224 cross 224. So this first convolution layer.
So please change the slide.
So the first convolution layer has. So now tell me, from the definition of VGG, what is the first convolution layer going to look like? What is the definition of that first convolution layer in VGG?
C 3W 1S 1P.
64C 3W 1S 1P. For the second convolution layer?
It's the same. 64C 3W1S1.
Okay. Now for this max pooling, what will it be?
2W2S.
Great. Now let me do the other side of it, which is the so say matching to this on the other side, you will have this whole part coming down. Okay, so for that one, if I write it down, then that becomes something like this. So you have your unpooling, you have conf, then you have a softmax, and here comes down your y, which is also supposed to be 3 cross 224 cross 224.
Please change slide.
Okay, so here let's come down one by one. So this is a conf 2D, this is a conf 2D, and this is an unpooling layer. Now for this conf 2D, you will have the same kind of a thing. So it will be 64C, 3W, 1S, 1P. Even for this one also, it's going to be the same. And then you pass it down through. Oh no, wait a minute. For this one, it's going to be different in a way that here your number of channels is going to be the same as number of classes. Okay, so say you have capital omega number of classes. So omega C, 3W, 1S, 1P. So if you have a 2-class classification problem, then your capital omega becomes 2. Just hold on. Hello. Good morning. Sorry, that was a phone call which people don't understand. They make phone calls. Okay, where was I? Yeah. So in case of a 2-class classification problem, this capital omega becomes equal to 2. In case of a 3-class classification problem, this capital omega is going to become 3, and so on and so forth. This is how it goes. Okay. So now comes the next part of the problem over here is essentially what this unpooling is going to do. And if you go back into this particular diagram, then you will see a very interesting thing, which is that there is a pooling index transfer. So this green thing which you see over here, that is a pooling layer which is mentioned over here. And they say that these green lines are what are called as pooling indices. Okay. Now, once I take these pooling indices and go over here, then you have this red one, which is an upsampling layer, which is present essentially over here. So what you are doing is you are taking these pooling indices, transferring them to this particular point over here. Okay, that's how it typically works. Now the point is that what do we do is the question with that one. Okay. So if you recall, then when I was teaching about max pooling, I did also speak about unpooling. And in unpooling, there was an option that when we do this unpooling, that it essentially can increase the spatial span over there. दिव्यांजन के दिए थी, सुमन के दिए थी. Okay. So how this works out is like this. So I will have these max pooling being done, and let me draw that green highway. So this is my pooling index, which is transferred over here. Okay. Now, can somebody tell me exactly what is the size of the tensor which is present over here? After this max pooling, what is the size of the tensor? So can you tell me what is the size of the tensor which is present over there after that max pooling operation?
That's 64.
64 by 224 by 224. Okay, good. Now, here, when it comes down, what do you think should be the size of this will be 60. I don't think it will be 64 by
So 112. 64 cross
Yes,
112 cross
yes, sir.
112.
112, sir.
Okay. Now, whatever goes as input over here to this unpooling, what will be the size of the tensor over there?
So 32 cross 112 cross 112.
It will be 32.
So I think we take half from the previous layer and half from the current running layer.
Okay. We are not discussing unit, Shivam. Have a look in this diagram.
Sir, can you explain the pooling indices? That will be clear, sir. What does it pooling indices mean?
I will tell you what pooling index means, but the point is looking at this diagram, tell me like what do you think should be the input which goes over here? And actually, I already discussed what a pooling index means, but I will come back again. But here, tell me, like looking at this diagram, what is going from the encoder side to the decoder side?
Sir, input to the unpooling layer, you mean, right?
Yes, input to the unpooling layer. What will be the size of that?
So 64 cross 112 cross 112.
64 cross 112 cross 112. So remember, this is not unit. In unit, you were also taking the activations. Here, I mean, you are concatenating the activations. Here, we don't have any such thing. So we are not really worried about that. So this is not unit. Here, directly it comes down over here. Okay. Now the question is, what is this unpooling over here? So let's look into a typical scenario. Okay. Say that.
So please change the frame.
Yeah, just a minute. So in unpooling, so what this pooling index thing is something like this. So say I have a system which is done like this. So it has say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, something of this sort. So I do a 2 cross 2, 2 by 2 max pooling. Then for my first block, which is over here, my value is going to come down as 5. Okay. Then so it's going to come down as 5, and if I have these pooling indices, then my, or wait, let me go to the next slide and show it. Then it is easier. I need some more space to do it. So what I'm doing is, this is my input Z1, which is like this. So say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So this is my output, which is Z2, and this is my pooling index, PI. Okay. So this pooling index is going to be of the same size as sorry, as that of Z. So now, if I do it something like this, that say each of these locations has a certain convention. So I call this as A, B, C, D. Okay. Now I am taking this maximum value over here. So if I over this window, so the maximum value is going to come down as 5. Okay. Now from which location did the maximum value come down? So that is C over here. Okay. Next, I'm going to take this window. So what is the maximum value over here? So this window will now have this as A, B, C, D. Okay, so for this one, the maximum value is 6, and this comes from the location C. Okay, now I go to the next location, which is like this, and I write it down as again A, B, C, D. So the maximum value is 8, which also comes from the location C. And then I take this window, and my locations are A, B, C, D. So the maximum value over here is 9, and that comes from the location C. Okay. So this is what is my input to max pool. This is output of max pool. This is pooling index, which we have over here. Okay, so you got your input to the max pool, you got your output from the max pool, and then you have your pooling index. Now, when I want to unpool this thing, so then what I do is like this. So for unpooling, I will have this Z2, and then I have my PI or the pooling indices, and from there I want to get down my Z1 prime. So here, what were the values I had for Z2? See, these were 5. Let me write it down. 6, 8, 9, and my pooling indices were C, 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 C. Okay. Then my unpooled system over here is going to start looking like this. So so just keep something in mind that this was a pooling with 2W1S. Okay, this was not a pooling with 2W2S. So we'll look into what the pooling and unpooling with 2W2S will be. That is something which I will ask you to. Okay, so this was with this one. So now 5 comes from the location C. So in this particular point, which is location C? Location C is over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down the value 5 over here. 6 comes from the location C, which is over here. So I put this value over here. 8 comes from the location C, so I put this value over here. 9 comes from the location C, so I put down this value over here. So in case like there were 2 locations from where it came, you would always see that the value will also be the same from the same location, and then the average is also the same, or even if it gets overwritten, there is no problem. So this is how you do the unpooling. So this is my input to unpooling. This is my pooling index, and this is my unpooled activation.
Sir, could you kindly repeat that last part? How did you do that unpooled activation? How did you get that 5 in that one? This one.
See, I have this location C. This is A, this is B, this is C, this is D. So this value came from the location C. So this is A, B, C, D. This is what I know. So what I do is this value comes from this location. So I put it back into that location.
Okay.
Next, I have this value which comes from this location corresponding to this whatever the index is. Then here it becomes A, B, C, D. So this goes and sits over here. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So now I have the next question. The next point is over here. So say I have 5, 10, 420. So this is my Z2. This
Sir, in the last one, sir, other than 5, 6, 7, 8, other values will be 0.
Yeah, other values are 0. Wherever I'm not substituting anything, they will have 0 values.
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
So just one thing, like we are first there was a matrix, and then we did max pooling to achieve 5, 6, 8, 9 matrix, and then we are unpooling. Answered the rest of the values as 0. So then what did we actually achieve, sir? Like,
Coming to it, wait. There you did not see the spatial increase. This is what I'm going to give this in this particular slide.
okay, sir. Okay.
So now this is what I give you guys as an assignment, that please tell me. So say this input is just 2 by 2 as of now, and this one is what I'm doing is unpool corresponding to max pool with 2W 2S. So now please follow the same conventions. So the convention is A, B, C, D. So this is the index coding convention. So since this is the index coding convention, so please follow this and fill up this matrix. Z1 prime.
Keeping the rest of the values 0, right, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please do it and take a picture and maybe post it on the chat. Or if you want to share your screen and show, that is also okay.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, I have shared a photo in a post, I guess. General post.
Wait. In the general post. Hold on. It's fun to navigate between so many things. Wait, I'm getting things, but the image is taking time to load. Now I have. Yeah, I think that is correct. So if we look at it, then where is my teams? So essentially, if we look back at it, so this is going to be something like this. So this one, which is 5, will go to this location A over here. So A is going to be this location. So this will have the value 5. Next, there is this value 10, which will go to the location C. Now, C is corresponding to the next type. So this is A, B. So let me write it in this. So this is A, B, C, D for this particular tile, which contributes to that location. Next is for the green one, it will be A, B, C, D. So this goes to C and that goes to this location. So this is going to have the value 10. Okay. Next is yellow, which is over here, which goes to the point B, and here becomes A, B, C, D. So you take this one, go over here, and then place it over here. This takes the value 4. And then you have this one, which goes to this location, and you have A, B, C, D. So this one will get the value 20 over here, corresponding to this. Okay, so that is what your whole setup is now going to look like. So you have 5, you have 10, you have 20, and you have 4. So after this max unpooling, all of these other values anyways are going to be 0. And only these 4 values are non-zero values over here. Okay. So is this okay with you guys? Did you understand the whole concept of max pooling and unpooling?
Sir,
Yes.
stride is taken in both horizontal and vertical direction, right?
Yeah, we wrote down 2W2S.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
So please check whether you are also getting the same thing or not. So can I proceed now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now so is there anything in this SegNet structure which is still on which you still have any doubts or anything?
Yeah, happening.
You have some doubt?
So can you please explain the upsampling process?
That upsampling process is this process which you right now solve. This unpooling process is that upsampling process.
Okay, no, this corresponding to this that is corresponding to the pooling process, right? I mean the pooling what we are doing, and similar to that the convolution what we are doing in the encoder, the similar operation what when we are doing in the decoder, what is that happening? You are telling us it's an upsampling, right?
No, not following it. Just hold on. Let me come to it. Yeah. So the point is that these blue blocks are what are given over here. So they are convolution and batch normalization and ReLU all taken into consideration. So you have a convolution layer over here, some bank of convolution layers with certain operating characteristics. The ones over here are also with the similar operating characteristics. Okay. As a result of which, what happens is, if you look over here, the first layer is what I said is what comes from this encoder part is what comes from VGG16. So this is a VGG16 equivalent definition which is over here. Now from there, if we come over here, then these are my first two layers of VGG16. They have these kind of convolution operations over there. So corresponding to them will be these kind of layers. I mean, corresponding to this will be this layer, corresponding to this will be this layer. Okay. The only difference which comes out is that because this is the terminal layer, so the number of channels it needs to generate is equal to the number of classes which will be present. That's why if there are omega number of classes, it will have omega number of channels present over there. Rest operation in terms of what will be the kernel size, what will be the stride, and what will be the padding, that is still going to be the same. Now you have some output coming over here as a result of the max pooling. Now this max pooling can generate an output activation as well as also give you the indices where it was doing that pooling. So you go through the depth and from that side, like you come to the decoder side of it, and then as it keeps on coming, you have the input which is going to this unpooling layer. So that input which goes to the unpooling layer has the same size as the output which comes from this max pooling layer. So the input to this unpooling layer is 64 cross 112 cross 112. Now this unpooling operation is what I am calling as unpooling over here is the same as upsampling operation, which is written over here in red. Okay, so in order to carry this upsampling operation through the whole process of unpooling, you will also need access to the pooling indices. Now that is something which we solved over here, and I showed you exactly how it's getting done. If you have access to the pooling indices and you know what you need to unpool over there, then this is your unpooled version of the activation. So this is your unpooled or upsampled version of the activation space which you get to see now. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir, what will be the flops for max pooling and unpooling?
Flops for max unpooling or max pooling.
The both max pooling.
Flops for max pooling, I think we have done it because it was there in the assignment in the worksheet.
Yes, sir, for unpooling.
No, for pooling, you know it. So now let's derive for it. So why don't you derive and tell me what will be the flops for the unpooling operation? What do you think? What are the operations? Let's look into this unpooling process over here and tell me what are the operations which are getting done.
So we're placing the values.
You're placing the values, then
Based on the pool indices and so pooling indices, and then assigning 0 to the remaining.
So what will be the order of operations? Let's look into it. For every location, what is the operation you are going to do during unpooling? Think on this one. You have to think about the compute complexity. I'm not going to keep on deriving every of them. So think on this.
For every location, we are just doing the assignment of operation.
For every location, we are doing the assignment operation. But in order to do that assignment operation, I think we are going through something. We are doing certain aspects over there. So what are we doing?
So we are checking whether the chosen location is same as that of the location shown in pooling index. If yes, then replace with Z2 value, or else put 0.
Okay, so there is one check. A check is a logical operation. Okay, for every location you are doing a logical operation, then you are doing an assignment operation. So if it matches, then assign it, otherwise make it 0. Am I clear? Am I correct with my thought process?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Hello, sir. Actually, sir, since we don't have to check for the position, right? Because if we have indices already and we have the values already, so we can directly put this on the unpooling activation, right? So we don't have to check for indices whether that indices are correct or not. We just have to go for assignment operation.
Okay, how will you do it? Let's look into it. So Z1 prime, every location in Z1 prime has to be filled up. So write down that algo which you are saying.
Yes, sir. First, we will initialize Z1 to the 0 matrix, let's say, of n cross n. Okay, all the values are 0. Then, if we take, let's say, a value of Z2 and the position we have got from the matrix,
so
that pooling index is.
Why don't you write the pseudo code? Just write a pseudo code.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Let's see. Let's see. These are all interesting options which we have. Let's look into that pseudocode and then we will design the complexity. Remember, there is a complexity with making all the elements in Z1 also 0. Because when you assign a memory, by default it is not 0. It will just read, the memory state is retained. When you assign a memory, it basically assigns a pointer, a starting pointer and the block size of that pointer. That is the only thing which is assigned when you assign memory. But the values in those memory cells, they are not assigned, they are not fixed. So you'll have to go and make every element 0. Remember that too. So take account of the complexity or the cost associated with that process also.
So we are doing per location only 2 operations, right, sir? Like comparison and assignment.
Yes, so the method which we discussed right now does 2 operations.
Yes,
but then we had some other option from Weber, and we should look into that option as well. So let's write down the pseudocode and then do it. Did you find out, Weber?
Yes, sir, posting. Sir, posted.
Yeah, please tell me.
Sir, I posted it on chat.
Oh, just a minute. Okay, good. Now find out the complexity of this one.
Sir, it will depend on what stride we take and what will be the width of the.
So as of now, do it for this condition. I mean, take that your input Z2 is M cross N and you are doing it with a 2 by 2 and a stride of 2. So what will be your cost involved in that?
Okay, sir.
So if your Z2 is M cross N, your PI or the pooling index is also M cross N.
So will it be 5 into Mn?
Rethink. Your output is not going to be Mn, your input is Mn. Your output will have a different size.
Yeah, Mn. Input is Mn, Z2 is M by N. So the operation number of operation is 5 Mn.
I don't think so. Can you show me like exactly how you derived it?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
In flop calculation, how it is mandatory to calculate the assignment operations all?
Yes, every assignment operation also has a cost. That is one flop. That is what we are considering as of now.
But sir, in our exam, there is a mention flop calculate only multiplication and addition. So, sir, why we calculate the assignment operation at that?
In the exam, it was asked specifically to calculate only addition and multiplication.
So sir,
you that assignment
so
also has flop cost. If
but
there
sir,
is specifically like do only addition multiplication, then you do only addition multiplication. I will have to read through. I don't recall which question. That's the point, Dipankar. I make several questions. I'll have to read through the question. When you just say that it was given like that, I will have to again see through the question as to why there was some reason why it was mentioned like that.
Sir, it's coming as M cross N by 2, means M multiplied by N divided by 2, total number of flops.
I don't think it is going to be so low.
Actually, sir, M multiplied by N divided by 4 is coming because we are taking a strides of 2 and a width of 2.
See,
then
your input is of size Mn. If your input is of size Mn, what is your output of? What is the size of your output? So let me go over here.
2n cross 2n, sir.
Input, which is Z2, belongs to R power of 64 cross M cross N. Okay. Your output, just put output right now, pooling index. This is what it is. Okay.
Yes, sir. I was
So in the approach
calculating
which I was,
cross-n.
what you were calculating?
I was calculating for 1 cross n cross n, not 64 cross n cross n.
Okay, 64. I just wrote it down as 64. You can do it for 1 cross n also, no problem. So let us do for every channel. For every channel, what is going to come down? For every channel, let's look into it. So for every channel, for every output location, you have 2m cross 2n output locations over here. So for every such output location, you will be able to do so in the approach which I was telling. So there is one comparison, one assignment for every output location. Okay, so it becomes 2 into 2m into 2n is equal to 8mn ops over here per channel. And so per channel. Now, Vaibhav, let's come to your approach. What you said is initially you will initialize all zeros. So make output all zeros. So that is going to cost you what? It's an assignment operation. So it will be 2m into 2n is equal to 4mn clock cycles. Okay. The next one is you're going to do what? So you wrote down that take a block of 2 cross 2 from Z1 prime BB and assign P of Pi is equal to Z2. Okay, good. So what you will do is you will traverse with a stride. That's what you are saying. So you are first at this location and you take your block, then you do a pointer stride by a factor of 2, then come to this location, then take a block. Okay, so say that I am at this block. I will have to find an assignment and do it. So what is the cost of it? So that cost of assignment is equal to 1. Okay, and then what am I going to do? So this cost of assignment is 1, but there is a cost of comparison. Because where do I need to assign that value? That cost of comparison is there. That is going to be 4. Okay, so this makes it 5. Now this is going to go over all mn such locations. So that makes it 5mn. So my total cost is going to be 4mn plus 5mn. That makes it 9mn. So 9mn ops per channel. Now you compare that one. So in this case, you had 8mn ops. When you are doing it in one shot, compared to that, you have 9mn ops. When you are doing it in operation.
How it is comparison cost is 4, sir.
Think how is a direct address reassignment done? How is a direct address reassignment?
Sir, when we are doing in a matrix, we assign in a constant time, right?
How? Tell me what is the underlying approach by which you actually do that. Just hold on.
Sir, when in algorithms, when we assign in data in the arrays or some, then we take it as a constant. And now you are taking
Hello, sir.
4. So
my question is that on the flop level or on the unitary operations level, how is this assignment operator implemented?
Hello, sir. I have shared one like screenshot, sir. Can you? Step 3, sir. I think, sir, that is why only MM.
So what you are saying is that you will do a pointer sleek.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So then you are saying, so if I do this with the pointer seeking, so pointer sleeking, then this cost will be 1. In that this becomes 2 mn. Your cost of assignment is mn and your pointer sleek is going to be another cost, because you will have an add operation like a pointer address plus another address. Do you agree to that? That a pointer sleek is going to be the current address of the pointer plus some address offset. So that will incur one cost.
Like, sir,
Yes, sir.
like, can we keep it with just an assignment, like replacing the 0 with that?
That's what I'm doing. So what am I doing? I am going to stretch this pointer. So if I'm moving that pointer, current value plus offset, that is what I'm doing. So this plus is one unit operation cost. Now, once I get the new address, I'm just going to do this assignment over there. That is one more cycle cost. So then I get down 2 cycle costs per output location. Then this 5 mn becomes 2 mn. So this will become then 2 mn and this is going to become 6 mn. So do you agree to this?
Sir, a little bit confusion in pointers, like, sir, like you said that addition is there, one more.
Okay, so you know fseek, say file pointers. You remember something from file pointers?
Pointers, yes, 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 yes.
So in file pointer, when you had to move a pointer to some location by some value, you used to use something called as fseek.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Got it.
So what were you doing? fseek,
yeah,
the
sir,
current file location and how many steps you have to move.
Yes.
How
Yes,
was
sir.
it,
Yes, sir.
implementing that? How to move? So it will do the current address plus that offset or the number of steps it has to move.
Yes, sir. The address will be added. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that is one more addition. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, so is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we derived compute complexity. You should definitely be very proud of yourself today. This is the compute complexity derivations are not easy. Okay, so this is the last network. And
So can you please see? So I have sent one image. So can you please see that?
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Just hold on a minute. Let me see. Your algo is correct, but your total operations, you forgot one extra point which will come down. Account for the cost of if and then for everything else.
So for if there will be one cost, and for other assignments, if there is w equal to 2, then 4.
Array, but then when you are doing this within that z prime of si plus k, what happened to that plus?
Okay. So the 4 in. Can you please repeat?
You forgot that plus over there. You wrote down the whole pointer seek, but you forgot that pointer seek is also is a cost. Okay, so now comes my last layer. I mean the last network layer. So this one is what is called as SUMNet. Okay, now there's a much more elaborate diagram. I think I don't have to write a lot of things, makes it much more easier. So it also has an encoder decoder like structure as in UNet or as in SegNet, any of them. Interestingly, it merges two of the most popular things which you have in both of UNet and SegNet. One of them is a feature concatenation, which is a property which comes down from UNet. So what you do is across these matched depth locations, you will always have a concatenation happening. So you do your first convolution, then the second convolution. So when we say down convolution, it essentially means this particular block. So there is a convolution followed by a max pooling. Now what goes over here is essentially the resultant of this max pooling. So whatever is the activation of that max pooling, that is what goes to be concatenated over here. Along with that, you also pass whatever is the pooling index, which comes down in this max pooling over here. Now you keep on repeating this one all through. Then you come down to your latent layer and then you again scale up in the same way over here. Okay. So now all convolutions are essentially 3x3 convolutions. Pooling and unpooling are all of 2x2. And it's very clearly shown out over here as well. Okay. So now, so if you look over here, then I mean, how does it really work is the question. So two interesting things which happen over here is that you essentially end up getting the say strengths of both SegNet and UNet coupled into a single model. On top of it, the problem in UNet, which was that you were squeezing out, you were losing out some of those boundaries every time. That problem does not stay anymore over here. So you don't tend to lose out the boundaries over here. So in a way, this is advantageous in a way of these two reasons. One is the activations for concatenation are not truncated at boundary. This is one part. The next part is now that these activations are not truncated at a boundary, the other advantage which you gain is that it benefits from pooling index transfer. This is a huge benefit which it achieves over here. Okay. Now, in some way, it gets its name. Basically, it's SegNet and UNet mixture. Well, we also joke sometimes and say that because the first author group was Sumar, which is also included. That's the other part of it. The primary reason is because it essentially has a mix of both the characteristics and attribute of SegNet and UNet. Okay, so this is where I'll close for the day. In fact, like for this network, you can derive the complete computational complexity and the accounts lower than that of UNet or SegNet if we take any of them. But although it looks a bit complicated in terms of what is the order of operations which are going and everything which is happening, how much of data is flowing down. But in general, the compute cost is significantly low. The number of parameters is also significantly low.
Sir,
yes.
In terms of accuracy, can you give the comparison between these three models? Like what?
Okay, so it depends on case-to-case basis, but SumNet was something which has been found to be much more accurate for biomedical image segmentation task. It actually beats UNet by at least 5 to 10% on a margin rate, depending on how effectively you train. That's another question. Like for training also, we had some improvisations, some new kinds of loss functions which we had put down over there. And that's how it really improves on top of it. So typically going down the line for natural images, I don't know whether somebody has tested out SumNet or not, but there is, at least on the biomedical task we had done, our standard reporting is 5 to 10% depending on what modality and kind of images you are looking at. And SegNet does not fare very good. So SegNet is even worse than UNet by a factor of another 10% or so.
Sir, can you explain how does this upconvolution function works?
Upconvolution is this particular block which is given over here. Look down. This block is what is called as upconv, which consists of a max unpooling followed by a convolution.
Got it.
Sir, can you again explain the first advantage that you have written? I'm not able to get it.
So go through yesterday's lecture on UNet, and there is a concatenation which happens. Figure out where it is happening, then come back to this one and do it. You did not do yesterday's lecture. That's the reason you are asking me that question. So find out how concatenation, how truncation is happening over there, and within this one, find out if any truncation is happening. So the border part of the space that gets truncated in case of a UNet. Here it doesn't. Just find it out.
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, in Bayes normalization, we will do x minus mu by sigma, right, for each of the value.
I have already taught you batch normalization.
I'm just asking for the number of flops, sir. So we will
batch norm you will have to appropriately find out, like break it down into unitary operations, then you can find out like what will be the cost. So during inference time, so during training, your patch normalization calculates those mean and variances. During inference, it does not calculate mean and variance anymore. The cost of calculating mean and variance is not there in inference, but if it is forward pass in training, then it will get calculated. That cost
that was the confusion, sir. Yeah.
Okay, guys, then let us close for the day. And next class, I'm going to start with adversarial learning.
Sir, are we going to have any tutorial for segmentation?
I think we should have it. So next week, let me start with adversarial learning. Then on the next Friday, I will just have a word with the TAs and we will put down a tutorial, a programming tutorial on semantic segmentation as well.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, like regarding the algorithm of unpooling, sir, I'm just trying to write an algorithm, sir, because the algorithms that were shown, I didn't understand many of them. So, sir, I am writing it. So, after the class gets over, can I send it to you, sir? Can you just go through it?
Yeah. Please put it in the chat itself. I will.
Yes, the class
look.
Chat.
Yeah.
In the class. So please.
Class chat or general, anywhere you can put it down. I will look through it, or any of the TS will also look through it, and we'll get back. Don't worry. I mean, anywhere any of you in the class has any doubts or anything, put it in the general channel. And I generally encourage all the other class fellows also to answer to that. The TS keep on monitoring. I also keep on monitoring. So let's have that engagement. We have this online thing, then why aren't we using it?
Okay, yes, sir, because the algorithm, I didn't get that, so that's why I'm trying, sir.
What about the worksheet you told about vector CNN?
We will do it, don't worry, they are coming. I wanted to finish a few of these things because then I have a conference at the end of March. So my plan was to do a lot of exercises during that time. So I'm trying to finish off teaching things before I go off for the conference.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, guys.
And
then
sir,
let us
one thing, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea that you were discussing is we will take the address, address. So in that unpooling thing, we will take the address, and the jump out here is basically the stride we are taking, right, sir?
Yes.
Now,
no, not always. The for loop jump is the stride we are taking, but within that, the jump is the index in the pooling index.
Okay, while we are doing it with for loop, right, sir? Yeah, is there any other approach without using that address or the pointer concept? I was trying to do that, sir, because that pointer thing.
You will have to compare. So for every location, compare whether that matches with an ABCD or not. If it matches, then assign. That is the approach which I was doing.
Okay, sir. Just thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, guys, let's end for the day then.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.